Hello everyone, thanks for joining us on Friends of Elephants June 2022's edition. Before I dwell into the topic, I will quickly introduce Friends of Elephants today. Friends of Elephants is not an organization and is not proposing to become one. It's an informal group of people coming together with varied expertise concerned about elephant and other wildlife. The group is a forum for disseminating knowledge linked to the elephants and other wildlife science, conservation, and welfare through art, culture, literature, movie, talks, and panel discussion. Our expectation is that people who have attended our events gain knowledge in very informal way and also on their own or with their proximity to the people from policy making, help in developing appropriate conservation and welfare measures for wildlife, including elephants. Friends of Elephants, in collaboration with Wildlife Trust of India, presents Elephant Memories, going back to the classical elephant landscape. Today's schedule are as follows. Introduction would be done by Sai Sanjeev, that's me. And today's topic is radio tracking the elephant in Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve, Southern India, by Mr. Nagarajan Baskaran, followed by conversation between Dr. Balasundaram Ramakrishnan with Nagarajan Baskaran, and the topic is Elephants of the Elephant Kingdom, History, Geography, Ecology, and Conservation. It will be followed by question and answer, which would be moderated by Sanjay Ajanikar. So before I dwell into, I have a couple of announcements to make. Please always keep your videos off, and if you have question, type it in the chat box. It would be taken up by our guest at the end of the session. I'll do the introduction of our guests and me. I'm Sai Sanjeev. I'm an experiential learning educator, founder of Ticket Tales. I have designed and hosted around 70 plus children's program. I use natural elements ranging from rocks, skies, trees, and biodiversity to teach curriculum. I design experiments, exploration methodology, games for children to explore their surrounding and use them as a tool for learning. Currently, I am leading a campaign called Curious Childhood that emphasizes on having access to experiential learning opportunity to all children. Today's topic of the talk is radio tracking the elephants in Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve, Southern India, by Dr. Nagarajan Baskaran. Dr. Nagarajan Baskaran has done his MSc, MPhil, PhD and is currently working as assistant professor in Department of Zoology and Wildlife Biology at AVC College, Mananapandal, Mayiladuthurai, Tamil Nadu, India. His research interests are mammalian ecology, conservation physiology, and human-elephant conflict. He has 10 years of experience in academics and 31 years of experience in research. He is also a member of IUCN SSC Asian Elephant Specialist Group since 2000 and a consultant conservation scientist at ANCF since 2011. A guest faculty at Center for Biodiversity, Rajiv Gandhi University, Itanagar, Arunachal Pradesh from September 2013. He was also a honorary wildlife warden at Nagapattinam district from 2018 to 20. Today's conversation topic is Elephant Kingdom, History, Geography, Ecology, and Conservation. It would be between Dr. Balasundaram Ramakrishnan in conversation with Nagarajan Baskaran. Dr. Ramakrishnan is an assistant professor at Government Arts College, Udagamandalam. He's author of 3 books on Asian elephants. He's also one of the editors for 5 proceedings. He has received Nature Conservation Award 2007 and Vocational Service Award 2019 for contribution made in wildlife research for past 15 years. He has published work on various aspects of ecology, conservation in 97 peer-reviewed journals, published 6 books, and guided 51 MSc students, 12 MPhil students, and 8 PhD students. He's member of IUCN, SSC, Asian Elephant Specialist Group, State Level Steering Committee, Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve, and NTCA Mudumalai Tiger Reserve. Today's question and answer session will be moderated by Sanjay Ajanikar. Sanjay has graduated as BTech in Chemical Engineering with specialization in pharmaceutical. He has done postgraduate in Management Studies with a specialization in marketing. He has worked as market researcher and loyalty program professional for more than a decade. Sanjay has managed various programs from profit as well as non-profit sectors in capacity of researcher, client servicing, business development, and entrepreneur. He quotes, "I'm taking a leap of marketing research, loyalty marketing, and digital media for wildlife conservation." His re-equipped objective is managing wildlife conservation programs using his varied experience and acquired skill set. Currently, he is associated with Asia Nature Conservation Foundation and the Action Foundation for managing research and wildlife conservation. Thank you so much for allowing me to introduce. Thank you, sir. The floor is yours. I'm muting myself. Thank you, sir. Nagarjun, sir. I'm giving the...
Thank you so much. May I start?
Yes, sir. Please do.
Yes. So I'm just sharing my screen.
Sure, sir.
Is it visible?
Yes, sir. It's visible.
Is my audio clear?
It's very clear, sir.
Good evening to everyone. And thank you very much for Sai Sanjeev to give an elaborate introduction about all today the invitees. This is a sudden assignment given by Mr. Surendra Verma, with whom I worked for about 1.5 decades. He has all of a sudden asked me to share my experience of working in Nilgiris, and therefore I have accepted and come out with the topic. I've been working in Nilgiris from 1989, and about 10 years I have intensively worked on elephants, that is towards my PhD program as part of the BNHS. So therefore I decided to give a topic on how do I track elephants using radio telemetry, and what I have learned, what kind of implication it has for management. And that is what my topic is going to be. This is before getting on to the actual presentation of my work, I just thought would give a baseline information as to what the Asian elephant current scenario is about the distribution and the population. Currently, the Asian elephant are distributed patchily in 13 Asian countries. Population is about 30 to 50,000 elephants in the wild, and 12 to 13,000 elephants in the captivity. And as of now, it is an endangered species. And this is all the place where it is distributed in various parts of the Asian countries. And distribution in India, there are 4 distinct regions as what we see on the map on the right hand side. We have Northwest, and then Northeast, Central Indian population, and Southern Indian population. Apart from this, we also do have a small population in island, Andaman Island. Those are feral population. Approximately 30,000 elephants are there as per the 2017 Project Elephant census estimate. And there are about 3,400 to 3,600 elephants in captivity. Regional population, if you want to know, then Northeast holding about 10,000 elephants, and Northwest about 2,000 elephants. East Central 3,000 elephants, and Southern India 14,000 elephants. Totally about 30,000 elephants. And over the past, since 1993 to 2017, the trend is showing increasing population is gradually increasing. Next is that, I just wanted to give a flavor about what the species adaptation. The species has adapted to live in a wide variety of habitat, starting from deciduous tall grass undergrowth, where you have very tall grass, plant community occupying the ground space, and then the dichotom plants occupying evergreen, semi-evergreen, moist deciduous habitat. And then again, sorry, I'm going back, sorry. You have montane grassland, which is in high altitude, whereby also elephants have adopted to live, and you can find them up to 2,600 feet height. And they are also there and low elevation, low rainfall, tropical dry thorn forest with about 500 millimeter of rainfall. So it's a species which has adopted to live in wide variety of habitat with various environmental conditions. And coming into the behavior, broadly, it is the largest among the terrestrial animal, weighs up to 5.5 tons of weight. And it has got very poor digestibility. The digestion is about 48%. It cannot digest even 50% of what it eats. And therefore, the large body size coupled with low digestibility makes the elephant to feed a large quantum of food. It need an average 5% of body weight. An adult elephant, minimum requires 250 to 275 kg of elephants. 275 kg of green fodder, and needs of water about 200 liter a day. Thus, elephant need a large forest area to meet their demands. It ranges over 700 to 1,200 square kilometer area to fulfill their requirement. And the observation on elephants shows that elephant adjust their activity according to area and according to season. Time spent on feeding is lesser in disturbed areas than in undisturbed areas, indicating need for undisturbed habitat. Today, what we have, majority of the habitat are disturbed, whereby their activity have been modified or reduced, especially feeding time during daytime being reduced because of the disturbance. And then some information about social organization, which is very essential to talk about, to understand about my topic, which I will be presenting a couple of slides later, is that social organization of elephants, social organization of elephant is slightly complex. Especially females, live in complex social groups with a strong social bond. And the female herd is called as a clan or bond group or family unit, in various technical way. Males, on the other hand, usually leave the maternal herd at maturity and largely lead solitary life with a weak social bond with other males and female herds. This is the picturizing about how female herds actually. Female herds actually, the oldest female is the matriarch or group leader, unlike all other animals where male leads the group. In female, it is in elephant, it is a female which leads the group, and therefore it has been called as a matriarchal society. Oldest female is usually the group leader or the matriarch. And herd or clan is nothing but related females and their young ones belonging to several bond groups. And bond group is nothing but closely related females and their young ones. And then you have family unit, which is nothing but mother and its dependent calf. So it depends on resource availability. The elephant herd is split into the lowest level of bond group. This is what on the left-hand side you see an adult male or adult female with a calf, and these two can be called as a family unit one. And on the right hand side with this in the same photo, what you see is an adult female, another its own dependent calf. So these two are called as two different family units. And when resources are very low, up to family unit level, they used to break and then use the resources, scanty resources. When these two family units joins together, can be called as a bond group. Bond group is nothing but closely related to the females and their young ones. And in the right hand side top photograph, what you see is likely to be adult female, which is the oldest one here. And there's another adult female, which is likely to be its daughter, elder daughter, or reproductively mature elder daughter, along with their young ones or juvenile. And this is what the bond group. These two joins together, two family units joins together, form a bond group. And several such bond groups, they are all related. There are several such bond groups joins together forms a herd or clan. So a herd or clan mostly, definitely used to be a related individual. No unrelated individual you can see in any kind of a elephant herd. Even orphan cows abandoned by a herd has not been accepted by any other herd. That is what the kind of a social organization they maintain. Members of the group split often, and therefore group size cannot be used to identify herd. You cannot say identify any herd based on the number of individuals. Yes, morning time you see one herd among group size, afternoon time you see the same herd, the number increases, and then by evening again it decreases. And therefore depends on the condition of the resources, the herd is to split, and therefore group size should not be used as a identity for differentiating various groups. Mean group size is larger during the wet season than in dry season, simply because of the reason during wet season resources are available abundantly. By then they used to be in a full group size or maximum group size. During dry season resources are very scanty or very less, and therefore you find most of the groups are smaller during the dry season. Female mostly remain with their maternal herd throughout their life, and therefore there are matriarchal society, and all the individuals found in a given herd are related individuals. Thus, herd always comprised of related adult females and their offsprings of both the sexes. Unrelated members are not permitted in any clan, or unrelated calf or even abundant calves are not accepted by any clan. Only the maternal clan, which lost its calf, can only accept. And this is a picture where you see large group sizes during the wet season, the continuous line, the dotted line during the dry season. During the dry season, most of the herds are in smaller groups, whereas in wet season, most of the groups are larger group size. Males around the age of 10 to 15 years, they leave the maternal herd gradually and become solitary. At times, they also form bachelor groups. Adolescent male disperse from maternal herd, settle down away from the maternal range to avoid inbreeding. Thus, large population range and corridors are needed to avoid inbreeding. So that is what the baseline information about elephants or elephant social organization, elephant need, and things like that. Coming into the topic that what I am going to present about my work in Nilgiri is that ecology of Asian elephants by Bombay Natural History Society, a project which was started in 1982 and went on up to 1993, whereby I have worked at the fag end of the project as a research scholar and got my PhD. And it was a project by Bombay Natural History Society, funding from US Fish and Wildlife Service, and J.C. Daniel was the investigator. He was the Bombay Natural History Society director for more than 2 decades. And as a senior scientist of the project, Dr. A.J.T. Johnson, who later worked as a faculty in Wildlife Institute of India, joined the project by 1982 and served as a project scientist for about a year, basically to train the scientist for the project. And Mr. A.A. Desai, Ajay A. Desai, who is no more, actually passed away about a year back, eminent elephant elephant conservationist, was one of the scientists of the project. Hello. And Dr. N. Sivaganeshan, who is also joined as a scientist of the project, and Dr. V. Krishnamurthy, who is also no more, actually, who is a retired forest veterinarian and very renowned, world-renowned elephant veterinarian or the elephant doctor or a veterinary doctor, who was serving as a project officer for about 10 years with the same project elephant project of Bombay Natural History Society, which started in 1982 and went on up to 1993. The original idea conceived by the project or conceived by the principal investigator J.C. Daniel was supposed to be Ajay Desai, who was studying the population, social organization, and ranging. And then Dr. Sivaganeshan was supposed to study about the grass dynamics, feeding, and habitat use. That is, with that in mind, the project was started, and it was decided that both of them will work in Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve and covering these major aspects. And immediately after joining, both were trained by A.J.T. Johnson in various elephant reserves or elephant landscapes. This was the photograph taken by A.J.T. Johnson when he had given a training for Ajay Desai and Dr. Sivaganeshan. At the initial stage, when they have been trained, how do they go about observing elephants? Basically, it was started with the captive elephants, and gradually later on they were introduced into the wild elephant. This was a photograph in Mudandurai Kalakad, and the right-hand side one is actually Mudumalai, which is also another very famous place for captive elephants, whereby Dr. Sivaganeshan and A. Desai is observing the captive elephant, and one of the famous elephant in Mudumalai, named after Mudumalai, it is called Mudumalai. It is still there, and it is very well known Kumki. Here, later on, the concept was slightly modified, although initially it was conceived with a smaller idea. Later on, it was enlarged. Ecology of Asian elephant studying only in Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve alone will not be very ideal to understand the species requirement. Instead, it is appropriate to look at other kind of a habitat. Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve is considered as optimal habitat because it's one of the very well-known deciduous tract whereby you have very high biomass of grass and browse availability, and therefore it supports the highest density of elephants as well as other large mammals. So therefore it is considered as optimal habitat. And then you have suboptimal habitat, whereby you have extensive area, but the habitat is highly degraded because of the cattle grazing and the biotic pressure or pyrite collection, all those kind of disturbance by people, which is actually degraded the habitat, which is called the suboptimal habitat, which for which Hosur and Dharmaburi Forest Division been selected, whereby Dr. S. Ramesh Kumar has been assigned to study the elephant behavior or elephant ecology in that area. And then the third area was isolated habitat, which is a Dalma Wildlife Sanctuary, whereby it's about 90 square kilometer of a forest, whereby about 60 elephants used to spend with just about 3 months, and rest of the 9 months used to be out of the Dalma into southern Bengal, caused a lot of human elephant conflict. Therefore, one Dr. Hemant Date has been asked to take up a study on the ecology of elephants in isolated Dalma Wildlife Sanctuary. The idea is that when you have optimal habitat, suboptimal habitat, and isolated habitat, you understand the ecology of the species in relation to this kind of a habitat diversity. So initially, the study by Ajay Desai looking at the population or social organization or ranging using natural characteristic feature. Elephant can be identified using natural characteristic feature like ear pinna, the shape and the pattern of the ear pinna, all that have been shown here. And then the holes and the holes, especially along the ear pinna edges that is prevailing, that can also be used as a identification mark for identifying individual elephants. In case of a male, you can use the tusk shape and size as identity to differentiate different individuals. Apart from that, there are other characters like tail hair. You can use as another other character to identify. So this is what the using natural characteristic feature means. Ajay Desai was following the same elephant to understand the ranging or social organization. But when you use such a method on a species which range very widely, especially in Nilgiri, they, apart from Mudumalai, also ranges into Bandipur, Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary, Nagarajan National Park. It was a so difficult task for Ajay Desai to follow the same individual on day-to-day basis or follow the same herd on day-to-day basis. He used to be following the same herd about 6 months a year, and after 6 months he was unable to keep a track of them, simply because when they move very far from the base camp, which used to be Mudumalai. Study on ranging and sociality by Mr. Ajay Desai suggested to use radio telemetry so that their ranging or social organization can be better understood. And therefore, by 1991 and 1995, radio telemetry study was carried out, in which I worked as a research scholar from February 1991 and 1995. And by the time when I was studying the elephants using telemetry, it was a VHF telemetry, and these are all the kind of a radio receiver, radio transmitter, which is put machine-made belt, which is put around the neck of the elephant, so that it continuously emit the signal. And this is what the receiving unit, receiver and handheld held Yagi antenna and the earphone. With that, you can go about receiving the signal, and then track the animal, get to know which direction animal is using or heading towards, and then go on in the same direction you can get to know. So radio telemetry study, radio collaring is a big program, although it is been considered as the easiest task, but it is a very Herculean task, whereby 3 different teams. You have a veterinary team, which is assessing the animal condition, animal health condition, whether it is suitable for radio collaring or not, and then deciding about how much of a dosage to be given for tranquilizing the animal, and what kind of a terrain should be selected. All that veterinary group takes care, and research team decides about what kind of an animal they are interested in selecting for radio collaring. So it depends on your one, this one. The researcher decides which herd to be followed, radio collared, and which individual to be radio collared. All that the research community decides. And then the third one is I have no photograph, but you have the forest department officers and field staff their role is to mostly reduce the crowd, because when you have a radio telemetry program going on in the fringe area, a lot of people get to know, they come and disturb the fun. Or even in remote areas or core areas, sometimes when you go for dotting the animal used to get to know about your person, try to come and attack. But for that, you need to have a safety team, forest department staff always there behind the radio telemetry team or radio collaring team for the safety reasons. So that is a kind of a complex this one. Even after having all these, when you dot the animal, it takes about 5 to 10 minutes for animal to get the sedation. By the time when sedation reaches the animal to be on its this one recumbency, it may run for about a 2 kilometer or even 3 kilometer distance. When they run, you will have to still go behind them, and you should not go so close so that they may turn and attack, or you should not keep too far so that you lose track of the animal. So it is all very complex, unless otherwise one experience that is very difficult to explain. So again, there are various difficulties when you use VHF telemetry for studying about or for understanding animal movement, especially like wide-ranging species like elephant. Because these elephants are something that range over larger area, about 600 to 1,200 square kilometer. And especially during the first year, when we have no idea about where all this particular bull or the herd used to move around, we had a very Herculean task in tracking the elephant for during the first year. And later on, as we got to know, first year we got to know this particular herd used to be in this area region, Mudumalai region, central part of the Mudumalai region during the wet season, and the western part of the Mudumalai during the Wayanadu Wildlife Sanctuary during the second wet season, or towards the Satyamangalam side during the second wet monsoons. It is easier later on during the second year onward. It was so easier to get to know about the a given elephant or a given herd. But during the first year, it was so difficult task, especially with this bull. Just about 7 days, 6 days after radio collaring, we radio collared this bull in Mudumalai Wildlife Sanctuary by 1991 February, a place called Crosscut Road. It was operating in the same place for about 4 days, 5 days. The 6th day, it was unable to be tracked, and we were literally checking the entire Mudumalai Wildlife Sanctuary, right from the eastern part till to the western part and Bandipur. We were unable to get all kind of hillocks and that are there in Mudumalai being climbed literally by our team to check whether the signals are coming. We were literally unable to get. After about 7th day, a place called Dodakati within Mudumalai, from where I happened to get a couple of signal, a couple of beeps towards the northern side, which is coming towards Nagarajan side. And after a couple of beeps, I have lost the signal because the radio signals also been affected by various climatic factors and wind velocity, all kind of this one, or topography, or fog, all kind of a factor are known to affect the radio signals. And therefore, couple of beeps I got towards the Nagarajan side, and I couldn't make out whether it is within Bandipur or within Mudumalai or within up to the distance of Nagarajan. Something that I was unable to understand at that point in time. And later on, I just along with my assistant Krishna, we both managed to get the signal, and then we were unable to understand. Then we got back to our station and said Ajay Desai that we have got a couple of signals from the animal that we are unable to track it for more than 5 days. Then he said, okay, let's go towards the direction where we have got the signal. And we walked into the place. From there, we started walking. And by 2 o'clock, we started. By the time when we got the signal, it was around 11:30 in the morning. By the time when we went back to the field station, got the big battalion along with us, it was about 2 o'clock, because this core area used to be one of the famous place for the sandalwood smugglers in those days to take a route to the Kerala. And therefore, normally in this core area, especially a place called Dodakati, whereby one or two people won't get down for any kind of a work. If at all means along with the forest department staff, five or six staff along with the gun, all kind of security. They will get down and do the work and get back. Since we were only two people, we decided we'll go back to the station, get more people, and then go back checking. Then by 2:30 when we started, we walked almost up to 8:30 in the night in the same direction in which we were getting. We have got the signal and we started walking towards the signal almost up to the end of Bandipur, a place called Kabini. At that point, we managed to locate it by 8:30 night, 8:30 in the night. And then we were walking back, crossing Gundalpattu, the Mysore highway. We were not able to get back via Gundalpattu to Mudumalai because we left our vehicle in Dodakati, which is in Mudumalai, right, middle of the forest, and therefore we had to walk back. By around 11:30 or 12 o'clock, we got back and then got into the vehicle, returned to this one. This is what I know. This is all a kind of an experience with VHF at the beginning we had. And later on, it turned out to be completely easier because animal movement was able to be predicted simply because of the reason animal used to have the same kind of a movement pattern, or they show such a strong fidelity to the area. And coming to the result or finding, what is that? Out of the three female herds that we have radio collared, two of them were ranging in Mudumalai, Bandipur, Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary. And one of that was by and large restricting to Mudumalai Wildlife Sanctuary during first year, and second year, during second year, it has extended its range up to Coimbatore Division, Anaikatti, where right now the Salim Ali Center for Ornithology and Natural History, Government of India institution is established somewhere closer to this. And from elephants from Mudumalai going up to Coimbatore Forest Division or Anaikatti is something unbelievable at that point in time when I said. And somehow it has not returned. Though it has gone up to this extent, it stayed back in the Coimbatore Division second year and third year. So clans and bulls have their own home based on this finding. Similarly, the males on the right-hand side, both of them were ranging in, one of that was ranging mostly in Mudumalai Wildlife Sanctuary. It is a male without a tusk, which is called Makna, and it didn't come into musk. And another young bull, which is a tusker, was mostly ranging in Mudumalai and Bandipur, part of Bandipur region. So this home range of the males happened to be smaller than the females. Males used to be ranging much widely during the musk season. Since both the male did not come into musk, the home range was not really established. So basically, from this kind of finding, what we got to know, or this kind of a data, what we got to know, that clans and bulls have their own home and do not wander across a population range. Wander into, they don't simply use all forest area available in the population range, like what we see in African landscape, the wild beasts and zebra used to be in now migrating from one part of the landscape to other part of the landscape. The entire population would be moving. We don't have that kind of a population or subpopulation level movement. So every herd or every clan, bull has its own home, and they restrict within their home, irrespective of whatever habitat or whatever season. Home ranges are smaller in undisturbed optimal habitat than disturbed suboptimal habitat. This is what you have a couple of female clan that is ranging in Mudumalai, Bandipur at about 650 to 700 square kilometer, whereas the other one, which was ranging mostly in the degraded habitats or low rainfall area, had a much bigger range of 1,200 square kilometer. That is from southern India. And from northeast also, where I have studied elephants in northern West Bengal, along with Professor Sukumar, which was also very clearly showing elephants in the western part of the northern West Bengal, where habitat is much more fragmented than the eastern part. The elephant, female herds had a much larger home range compared to the eastern side, where forest is much more intact. So what is that the home range shares? Apart from the home range size, there are also other interesting patterns that clans show strong fidelity to their home, seasonal range, and corridor. Fidelity is nothing but truthness. They don't simply move all over. They have their own home within which they restrict every year. There are 3 different years home range of a particular clan being shown here. And similarly, other clans' home range was shown here. So you see, by and large, they are restricting within the same area, irrespective of the 3 years of a study. The bottom two of the maps are indicating the bulls range in 2 different years. Again, it is also using the same area. That means they do show very strong fidelity, or they are very honest to their home. It is not just only to the home, they also use various part of their home in a particular time. So when you say a particular time, it happened to be a season. So dry season, say for example, both these clans named as a Harini. These 2 clans were mostly using the central part of its range during the dry season. That is where you have a perennial water sources. And then during the southwest monsoon time, they move towards the western side. And during northeast monsoon time, they move towards the eastern side. Therefore, their movement to different parts of their home also very strong. I mean, very well designed or well defined. During the first wheat season, you can always see this herd in this area. During dry season here, and during the northeast monsoon towards the eastern area. Like that, this particular clan. So that is what indicating they have a very strong fidelity to their home and seasonal range. And similarly, the corridors what they use, this particular herd, there's a corridor called Singara Masanagudi corridor. It used to always go towards this area. Although it comes and use here above Masanagudi on the northern side, it never cross and go to the Nilgiri North Division this way. It used to always come back here and take a route to Nilgiri North this way. Like that, the Harini clan used to move between this range, this corridor, Masanagudi Mayar corridor or Masanagudi Singara corridor, whereas Priyanka clan was using only Masanagudi Mayar corridor. So that also has a no implication. So therefore, they show a very strong fidelity or truthness to their home, seasonal range, as well as corridor. Clans also show social hierarchy. Social hierarchy means that there are clans with different social status. There are dominant clan, there are subdominant clan. According to dominant or according to the social status, every clan uses the space. The dominant one uses the optimal habitat, subdominant one uses the suboptimal habitat. So, but all the clan spaces out in such a way that they do not come across the other clan in a given time, in a given space. So they do have a hierarchy and spacing. Hierarchy, probably the hierarchy resulting in spacing, because when dominant one uses the optimal habitat, if subdominant goes there, probably it will not be allowed by dominant one. Therefore, it spaces out in such a way that it doesn't go and use the optimal area when the dominant one uses. And therefore, there is a spacing mechanism according to the social hierarchy of the different clan. Giving so that is there. Even these two, although these 2 clans overlap in space and uses the area in same area in the same season, but they don't meet each other in the same time. So that means that there is a spacing, very well established spacing among themselves. So what does that say for management? Now, strong fidelity or social hierarchy or spacing, what implication they have for management? Though resources in a given patch could support more than a clan, hierarchy among a clan result in spacing without temporal overlap, and therefore, though resource can support more than a clan, only one clan can use, and therefore, we need to have a larger area without having a social stress or without having a overlap, temporal overlap, so that they do not stress out. The subdominant one will not be stressed out simply because of the interference by the dominant one. So such behavior indicates the need for larger areas for the clan to range without social stress. If you go on reduce the forest habitat available, they will get compressed and they cannot really space it out in such a way that they avoid other clan. If they are not avoiding, then there is going to be a stress because of their interference, their own conspecific interference. Traditional corridors. So that is an implication. We'll have to have a larger area. Next one is traditional corridors used by a given herd cannot be converted into human habitation and create elsewhere and expect the elephant to use. So you cannot convert a traditional corridor just because it happened to be a close to a human habitation or a industrial area. Let us convert this corridor into a non-forest area and provide elsewhere corridor will not work. It is not only saying that ranging behavior is not only saying that it has implication for managing larger landscape or managing corridor, it also implication for human elephant conflict. This is something that very vital. One has to understand. Otherwise, it is not going to be such easier. Say, for example, in 20th century, you have a. This is hypothetically I'm saying, but there are case studies. During 20th century, you have a forested landscape which has got two different kind of this one, private and revenue forest, all this light green, and then you have wildlife sanctuary. And these two areas, since it is all forested during the 20th century, there are various clans that are operating here or ranging here. You have clan 1 that is partly ranging in private and revenue forest. Clan 2 is completely ranging in private and revenue forested habitat, and clan 6 again mostly ranging in private and reserve for revenue forest. Whereas clan 5 and clan 5 is exclusively ranging in wildlife sanctuary, and clan 4 and 3 is ranging very marginal level in the private and revenue forested habitat during the 20th century. So what happens now by 21st century, as the human population expansion increased and we have a better economic growth, the non-forested forested private and revenue forests converted into agriculture and human habitation. Clan 2 and clan 6 has lost its entire range, and clan 1 has got 50% of the range is lost. And now what the clan 1, 2, 6 that lose all or most of their home do? Can they just move towards the southern side where wildlife sanctuary is there, settle down? If you ask me, they cannot, because as what I said already, based on the ranging behavior, they do have a spacing and hierarchy. This clan 6 and clan 2 cannot move into wildlife sanctuary and establish their home here, because there are already several clans here. There may be many more clans. I have just given a few clans here. 4 is there, 3 is there, 5 is there. There may be many more clans operating here. And therefore, the clan 2 and clan 6 cannot get back or come into wildlife sanctuary and settle down. It has to look for some other area whereby no elephant or very few elephant. Now, what about the clan 1, which has 50% of the home is lost? That is also unlikely. It cannot stay back in this area and restrict itself only within the wildlife sanctuary, because if it restricts, as 50% of the area is lost, it may not be able to space out in such a way that it is not interfering with any other dominant clan here. And therefore, clan 1 also likely to move away from this area, clan 2 and clan 6. All these 3 clans likely to move away and look for a new place whereby it can settle down. So this displaced elephant, where do these displaced elephant go? they could just get compressed into remaining habitat or wander in search of a habitat without elephants that may or may not exist. It is unlikely, as even clan one also cannot restrict here, because 50% of home it is lost, remaining 50% home only is left, and therefore 100% time it cannot spend within the wildlife sanctuary. If it spend also, it is going to be a problem, because it is going to overuse the area and degrade its own habitat. So then what is happening? Now they move out and then look for a new place where they have a low elephant density or without any elephant. Therefore, we have a various scenario. Elephants from Bihar to Madhya Pradesh, staying to Madhya Pradesh, approximately killed 46 people and herd was captured. And elephants from Karnataka moved into Andhra Pradesh 1983 86 and killed more than 40 people, finally settled down in newly created a protected area called Kaundanya Wildlife Sanctuary in Andhra Pradesh, whereby the habitat is not optimal and elephants are continue to involve in and are partly sustained with the agriculture crop, and therefore human-elephant conflict is continuing. And similarly, in Karnataka to Maharashtra, and North Canara elephants from North Canara moved into Maharashtra and partly into Goa, settled down in Maharashtra. HEC continues. There also human-elephant conflict now continues. And similarly, in the study area in Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve, where I have studied elephants using radio telemetry, one of the clan which is used in the degraded habitat moved and settled down in a southern part of the Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve, that is Coimbatore division, now turned back. And that also, as the newly settled places happen to be a degraded habitat, it was partly sustaining with the agriculture crop. It was shot by 1995. So therefore, you have elephants staying out from the forested area in search of a newer area to settle down when they lose the home. And when they do so, you have this kind of a scenario, like crop cultivated in the cultivation area gets trampled or eaten by elephants. And you have sometimes even people who are there in their home also gets trampled and killed by elephants. Houses damaged, and then in the process, in the process of human-elephant conflict, people also take this one right in their hand. They shoot the elephant. One of the elephants which was raiding the crop was shot by the farmer at the crop field, and the captive elephant taking the dead elephant. And therefore, we need to have a plan tomorrow. I mean, we need to plan for tomorrow conflict requirements, not just to deal with what is happening today. Ad hoc basis, plan will not work. We need to have a very clear policy as to as to whether in population increasing, what kind of a measure we are going to have. Our population, population remains the same, but habitat condition is deteriorating, and therefore elephants are not getting adequate food within their habitat. What kind of a management measure we are going to take, or what kind of a tool we are going to have to control the conflict. This is, in much of the landscape that what we have in India, or for that matter in Asia, is not the landscape that nature will automatically control the population, or natural selection will attend the population and bring it under the control. It is all islands of habitat with the ocean of people, and therefore the elephant that loses the home very next day or very next hour, it is going to be out of the forest by the time natural selection act and the population, elephant population, and control it. And therefore, we cannot have a system, or we cannot have a solution that nature will take care of the kind of a scenario that is prevailing in Indian or Asian scenario. We need to have a solution or a policy to deal with such a situation. So you also do have electrocution is happening when the elephants are staying out, or when the elephants are getting used to crops. So that is what the kind of consequences or implications what ranging behavior has for management of elephants. And another aspect what I have studied is looking at the habitat use. There's a general this one pattern that what people have said, according to season, elephant move or elephant use a different kind of a habitat. Simply because of the reason that in tropical forest, resource quality and quantity vary among habitats in a given season due to spatio-temporal variation in an environmental factor. So you can see in the same season, dry thorn forests are so dry without much of a green fodder, whereas you have dry deciduous forest, which is with so much of a grass, and moist deciduous forest with a much more greener short grass. So when this is what the scenario, studies that use the population scale or studies that use the natural characteristic feature as a tool for identifying elephant movements said that according to season, elephants move from one forest to another forest. This is what the kind of a general pattern described for population level both in Africa or Asia. So both in African and Asian elephants have been documented to use different habitats in different season in response to rainfall and in influence on food quality, nutritional status. This is all the study which has stated. Such finding leads to assumption that all individuals in a population are equal and can use the habitat of their own choice. Means the entire population range is available to all the clans and bulls. If that is the case, there is a hypothesis what people say that it is an ideal free distribution. If all the resources are open to all the individuals equally, it is ideal free situation model of habitat selection rather than ideal despotic distribution model, according to Fredwell, who now said ideal despotic is that it is not all the habitat are not open to all the individual. According to according to social hierarchy, various habitat are available. The one which is dominant will have access to optimal habitat. Subdominant is always pushed into suboptimal habitat. This is what. But when you say general scenario, elephants move according to the season, rainfall, or according to the nutritional factor, it says, it is assumed that all elephants have access to all kinds of forests. But in reality, when you use radio telemetry and study the individual elephant habitat use, it is not so. For example, the Priyanka clan that I have studied using radio telemetry had access to four different habitats: the moist deciduous forest, the dry deciduous forest, and mixed deciduous forest, and then dry thorn forest. Similarly, the Harini clan, which had overlapped extensively with Priyanka, or used the same space as Priyanka, had access to only three different habitats: dry deciduous, mixed deciduous, and then dry thorn. Whereas the third clan, which I was there, mostly operating in the eastern part of the Mudumalai, had access to only mixed deciduous and dry thorn. No matter how much ever, the dry thorn forest was good in a given season, or how much ever bad, it had to restrict only to this particular habitat. Similarly, in case of a bull also, this kind of a. So while some clans and bulls have access to all habitat types available within a population range, other restrict just to one or two habitat. Not all habitats are available to all individual. Number of habitat available varied in relation to spatial location of their home range. Where do they range? What kind of a habitat they range? That was dictating what kind of a habitat available to do that particular. So that is again, dominant one used to occupy the optimal habitat, subdominant one used to occupy the suboptimal habitat, and therefore it is something to do with the hierarchy. Here again, I am showing that intensity of various habitat used by various clans. Harini used 91% dry deciduous forest in dry season, whereas the other clan, which was also operating in the same area, had access to all kind of resources, only used 52% of the time the dry deciduous, whereas 47% of the time in dry thorn forest during summer. Similarly, in case of a bull also, there is a difference. You come into the first wet season, Harini was spending 93% or 96% in dry deciduous, whereas the Priyanka clan spends about 85%. During a second wet season, the scenario is completely different. Harini was by and large restricting itself to dry deciduous, whereas Priyanka was spending almost 60% in dry thorn forest. So intensity, what this result shows, intensity of habitat use also differ among the clans and bulls and not equal even among the overlapping clans. So this is again the preference, what kind of a habitat being preferred by various clan in different season as based on the use and what is the expected. What we are saying here, the dark one is observed and the gray one is expected. Expected. So when the use is more than the expected, it is being preferred. Here in this case, dry thorn was expected to have 100 location. It is observed more than almost 200 location, and therefore this habitat was preferred during dry season by Priyanka, whereas the other Harini clan, which was also having access to similar kind of resources like dry Priyanka, had more usage of dry deciduous forest and not the thorn forest. So this is another interesting pattern, that although resources are available within their home, but the overlapping clan are not preferring the given habitat in a given season. So biologically or physiologically, both are having the same kind of a requirement. But why do they use why do they prefer differently the different habitat? Means it is a kind of a this what is that situation forced by behavior. So this is again other kind of a preference shown by the male, and during the second wheat season, how the Priyanka clan was using and versus Harini clan using. Priyanka clan again using the dry thorn forest during the second wet season, whereas Harini clan showed all the habitat in proportion to their expectation they used. So therefore, there is a variation among the clans as well as among the bulls in the habitat preference or habitat intensity. Habitat preference was also varied among the clans and bulls. So what kind of this one implication it has, or what kind of significance it has? The differential use of habitat among the bulls and non-overlapping clans could be a function of spatial location of home. So if a bull has only one habitat, it has to restrict. So therefore, depends on the home range of the bull or clan, it has to restrict itself to their place. So that comes because of the traditional home where they have established, especially among the bulls and non-overlapping clans that are using in different areas. But the one what we have observed among the overlapping clans, especially between Priyanka and Harini, is that both of them having access to same kind of resources, but they have a different preference, or they have a different intensity of use and different preference. What could be the reason? I mean, if you ask what made these two clans use a different habitat, means no, it is a hierarchy. What I would say, hierarchy in space use, and its resultant spacing among the overlapping clan resulted in differential use of habitat and differential use of habitat as well as preference. Thus, clans are not free to use the habitat of their choice and appear to exhibit a hierarchy-based habitat use, which seem to fit with the Fretwell's ideal despotic distribution. It is not ideal free distribution, it is ideal despotic distribution model of habitat selection rather than ideal free distribution as assumed by earlier studies. These two are the most significant finding of this one. It is simply like what we see in wild zebra in African landscape, or wild beast in African habitat. Not the entire population has the access to all kind of resources. It especially among the female clan, according to their social hierarchy, they use or they settle down in a given landscape or in a given area which has a multiple forest or with a single forest. So what this one it has implication it has for management. Given the poor digestibility, large social group, long lifespan, and the resultant wide-ranging nature, coupled with the hierarchy and spacing of their ranges spread across protected area, territorial forest division, and different states in India that vary in their conservation status and priority. Therefore, with all these their home is spread across the protected area, territorial forest division, or different states of the India, the where conservation status and priority varies. A landscape level approach is what needed. Conservation planning and management action is needed at a landscape level for elephant conservation. Nevertheless, due to lack of conservation planning at the landscape level in the past, management action on the elephant conservation were mostly restricted to protected areas like wildlife sanctuary and national park, and territorial division. Management in territorial forest division that form the bulk of the landscape have not taken into account the conservation needs of the elephant, and therefore we had a lot of problems like insufficient protection resulted in ivory poaching, unplanned developmental activity in territorial forest divisions resulted in habitat fragmentation. Much of the forest divisions connectivity between the forest division being cut off due to expansion of human settlement and cultivation, and or else other kind of developmental activities which has really fragmented the landscape, and therefore no elephant which are showing fidelity to this kind of a corridor cannot anymore use. And therefore, this is another corridor again. And you also do have developmental activities going inside the protected area railway line, broad gauge line and new bitter gauge line being developed, converted to a broad gauge line, and then the speed of the train increase, and therefore you have more number of casualties by train accident. So going with all this scenario, now the project elephant has come out with realizing the wide-ranging nature of the species and need for landscape level approach. Government of India declared elephant ranges in 1991. There are about 11 elephant ranges, of which southern India has got 3 elephant ranges. And that is what now, when it has been identified as an elephant landscape, the project elephant now gives more priority for landscape level management, whereby even anti-poaching camp being established in remote areas with adequate transport facility and communication facility, arms and ammunition, which is reducing the poaching incident. And then periodical synchronized elephant census being conducted, unlike the past where census being restricted only to the protected area. Now it is all as range wise taking place, or regional wise census is taking place, and therefore now we have a better understanding about the elephant population, which is another milestone by Project Elephant. And that is what now the population is showing increasing. Nevertheless, there are scopes to improve the population exercise by planning, compiling data by population instead of by state. Now, also the compilation or planning is taking at a state level, and that was very recently by 2017. It has been given to a single agency, and thereby data being compiled to by a single agency. It was better able to be handled. So that is all. With that, I will say these are the people which has supported various ways for for my experience gaining. State Forest Department in Southern India, funding by US Fish and Wildlife Service and the Ministry of Environment, and the institution Bombay Natural Resources, and last but not least, the Friends of Elephants for giving me the opportunity to share my experience. Thank you.
Thank you for the insightful talk, sir. We were literally transported into wilderness across India, and it was really easy for us to unravel such intricate conservation issues into simpler version. Thanks for making us understand. Wonderful talk. Now I would like to open the floor for discussion. I would like to call Mr. Ramakrishnan sir to open the discussion on elephant history, ecology, and geography.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Baskaran. You made a very good, as a science told, you made a very good elaborative presentation, which is easily understandable to everyone. It's a very nice presentation. The same landscape also I worked, you must be knowing that. So after Dr. Ramakrishnan and Dr. Shivaganesan, followed by Dr. Baskaran, I'm the last person did my PhD in the same landscape. You must be knowing that. So I worked mainly on elephant corridors, which are the same landscape. My PhD, a little later than you. You did around time of 95 something. I have finished my PhD started by 2002 and submitted my thesis the 2007. Almost when compared to all our works, some of the things I would like to have a discussion with you. First of all, whatever the most important thing which all elephant people we are wondering very need for the development and for the conservation of elephants, which has been already also be evidenced recently, the home range study, especially the radio color study. Because when you did the study in 91, 95, some start from around 89 to 95. Almost now, when the 25 comes, almost 3 decades is going to complete now. So after 3 decades, your statement, which we are quoting everywhere, suddenly the elephant population home ranges around 500 plus 500 for family herds. As you said rightly, bulls might have little bit higher than the home range due to during a master period, they wander in search of the estrus female. Sometimes it might increase. So after 3 decades, we have been discussing this thing. So my idea or my suggestion or my discussion here. So what is your opinion about that the radio college study back for after 3 decades? What is your opinion on that?
It's an interesting question by Dr. Ramakrishnan. I do accept as situation has been changed a lot in the Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve landscape itself, especially in the eastern areas whereby a lot of developmental activities have come. I also suspect that there could be changes in the behavior, or there could be changes in their home range size. Probably, the elephants may have increased their home range size as the occupation by human has enhanced or increased. Even if not, as human anthropogenic pressure has been increased over the years, simply because of the reason that the human population also expanded and the livestock numbers have gone up. I do suspect that they may not have the same kind of a size what they have used in the past. It's likely that they may have increased, or they may even have shifted their area towards certain area, which was not used by elephants in the past, as what is been observed in one among the 3 clan that I have studied. Because of the disturbance, the clan which was using the western part of the eastern part of the Mudumalai already shifted. Like that, there could be a possibility.
Yeah, because why I'm asking this question, because I was one of the members the preparing of the expert committee report when Corridor case was filed. I was one of the members, he also the one of the members, we all prepared. So by the time, when the last time when the file went to the final judgment, by the time the magistrate, the judges asked the people, this is pure science. It's not something like a civil case or other criminal case. This is purely depending upon the animal and life sciences cases. So they wanted to get the report from the experts. Thereby, we people all we were involved. Ourselves, Dr. Ramakrishnan, John Singh, and Ajay, all we were there. Then finally, the report was submitted. So finally, the judgment, it was I very much supported by, as you said, Priyanka and Harini track. Really, that is the 2 tracks which has been really evidenced, which has been documented and evidence to the judges. Yes, if the area is not disturbed, the elephants still can cross, because the traditional route they use only the traditional paths. This is the route which has been already collected by radiocaudal study by Dr. Baskaran, by BNH study. We have documented that. Immediately the people accepted. That is the reason, because the case, though it went to even Supreme Court, now it won. That's the first and the presidential judgment we got. So that was I'm asking the home range, radiocaudal study is very important for to bring out some site-specific importance for the herds wise. And as you said, dominant animals they use, optimal ranges and all. This is very important. And the second discussion is, so I've been following when I was writing my thesis. I referred Dr. Ramaskumar and Dr. Shivaganathan in US also. that little bit difference I found that elephants normally they disperse from the optimal habitat to suboptimal habitat, like right is thorn forest and all. Normally after the onset of second monsoon or after completion of the second monsoon. But when I worked, it was in the middle time of the middle period of the even second monsoon itself. I found there was a dispersal from the optimal habitat towards suboptimal habitat, which means like Samraj Nagara, Kullegala, like dry thorn forest. What was the reason behind that?
It is again another interesting question you have raised. This is a scenario whereby we do see a lot of consequences of abuse of environment, environment, and therefore we are into facing the the global climate change and things like that is showing its consequences, and therefore we have monsoon itself, slightly deviating. Now, all of a sudden in this year we had a flooding of a southwest monsoon took place by May month itself. And it used to be June or July month used to be peak period in which most part of Kerala or Karnataka used to, or northern Karnataka or western Karnataka used to have a flooding. By May itself, this year Bangalore, part of the Bangalore experienced a flood, and most part of the Kerala experienced a flood. And then you also have similar kind of a scenario during the northeast monsoon. We do get the cyclone or depression coming up to April or May, or February or March. And therefore, according to changes in the rainfall, as the elephants are simply following, it is likely that they also change their movement pattern to different habitat in accordance with the changing climate pattern or changing climate condition. I accept very much your observation, and therefore this is all something that we need to really go about a resurvey or redo such studies and then get to know how the scenario has changed. And I do agree with you, they might change over the time with the changes in climate condition.
Yeah, I do also suspect. Now, when probably you might have known that this important point, that the proliferation of the invasive alien species, when compared to, because I read many papers like written by you and Dr. Ramakrishnan, many papers, when compared to the past 3 or 4 decades. But now, normally even Mandara, you must be in Mandara Avenue, we used to say as a PAP area, right? Because the PAP people go there, they could be able to see lots of elephants. Even myself, when I started my career also, I saw more elephants. Aramse, I've been following elephants all in Mandara, because there was a good grasses, the elephants, Aramse, they were feeding there. But now, recently I revisited even with Vivek Manansar also, and we were really surprising. Almost Epotorium lantana has grown almost, though we saw head of elephants, we could be able to see the elephants only the
back part of the elephant. There's so much of
animals are hidden in the weed. So the coverage or proliferation of the weed, most probably 10 to 20%, I hopefully might have invaded the elephant optimal habitat. So automatically the 10 to 20% area is reduced now, right? So whether it could play also some role to one of the drivers behind for the elephants to move or start little early the migration. Is it could be right?
It can definitely, it can, all kind of a factor, including lantana proliferation can also be influencing on the movement pattern. We can't rule out. The scenario is something so extensive or very intensive. The scale at which lantana has proliferated, I am sure that they not only influence on this one movement pattern, they also must have influenced a lot on diet selection, diet composition.
Yeah, because absolutely right. Because when I read, when I was writing my thesis, Dr. Shivaganan thesis has mentioned that the preferable food species were Rania domotarum mainly. But when I worked with the Rania domotarum, was very sparsely distributed. Still, the elephant could be able to cope up with the same landscape as optimally habitat. So the elephant could be able to easily change its diet which is available more. For example, right at Victoria, I didn't see more the elephant used to eat in our areas. But when I was working in the railway project in with Wildlife Trust of India, I saw that there was a very good feeding preference by elephants in the right at Victoria, because that was the only majority of the food species available in the between the A line and B line. So that I could understand, because we cannot also point out there's a single factor behind for the conflict or this for the elephants. Combination of various factors, but that is not very important. When you are looking in the landscape, there could be a site-specific issues. Some of the issues may be in Mudumalai, it may not be applicable in Coimbatore areas. So that is what all site-specific issues are playing a vital role on that.
I do
And
accept.
very important, and one more thing, so when I was working my PhD thesis, I found that I just compared that the economic loss caused by elephants in relation to the human casualty. I found very interesting that the economic loss was faced by the indigenous people, tribal people, but the human casualty or human injuries was not that much recorded when compared to the non-tribal people. So what is your idea on that?
Yeah, the answer is there in your question itself, but when you say indigenous people are the community which has been part of the landscape for several generation, and they know what is what, how to behave with a wild elephant and how to go with the other wild animal, and therefore they can easily overcome or avoid getting killed by elephants. Whereas when you have a non-traditional people coming and settling down in a elephant habitat or in the fringes of elephant habitat, absolutely they have no idea. They may think like any other cattle and get into the elephant and get killed by accident, and therefore it is likely that the invasion of or invasion of people from the exterior area into the French area, especially there's a newly settled people in the forested area could increase the conflict level. And the way in which they look at things are completely different from the indigenous people. Indigenous people will always look at the elephant damage or wildlife damage to the cultivated crop as part of the nature, whereas the newly settled people will not look at the damage like the way how now indigenous people look at.
Yeah, definitely. That is very important, because when I inquired the people, I conducted a questionnaire survey, and the people, by the time the traditional people are telling me that, we know that, sir, we are living the part of the elephant ecosystem. Whatever we do, even 1 acre ragi we are expert, but we never export for 1 acre yield. Probably 50% of the yield is for our Sami, or elephant will eat, then 50%. Their acceptance is totally different to what they non-traditional people, because non-traditional people, they are settled down the fringe areas, they invest huge money, and they are making a perennial crops like sugar cane and banana, investing so much of huge money. Also, they are appointing the people, more than 60 years, 40 years, more than 60 years age people as guarding the crops. Mostly they are deaf. They could not have, they don't have any idea about this landscape or elephant. That is the reason they might have encountered many occasions. Thank you. So recently, one of my PhD students, he did on land use land cover changes. Especially we did for, he worked on the border division. We found very drastic damage over a period of 40, 50 years, almost 230 square kilometers of forest, which means optimal habitat of forest has been lost. On the other hand, if you see that the tree garden areas and the building areas, built up areas are increased. So this is what is happening. As really already you pointed out that the indiscriminate growth of the human population, then they need to survive, but it's okay. But but unfortunately, which is not happening in any reserve forestry as in Tamil Nadu concern. No encroachment inside the reserve forest, only the reserve land and other things. So what I am thinking, we need to bring out policy level issues. Some of the areas we need to declare as a community reserve, or need to bring out back as a habitat. Like, what is your opinion on this, please?
I do accept with your view that although we cannot completely convert private land as as part of the elephant reserve, or we cannot prevent private land being developed. If there are large tract of private land which is forested, we can have this one called concept called the community forest, and whereby we can expect the private person to maintain the habitat or large private land as a forested habitat, and some kind of this one also is needed. Policy is also needed when he maintains the larger tract of his land as a forested condition. He has to have some kind of a monetary benefit or a kind of a compensation. What if he is conveyed into a non-forest and go for some other cultivation or tourism, and that is not getting, that he is not getting as long as he retains as a forested habitat, and therefore there has to be some kind of a mechanism by which he gets some kind of a economic benefit to maintain the private land as a forested habitat. And that concept also will work, forested, community forest. This is all very much there in the Northeast, but we do not have in Southern India. And that also needed to be introduced.
Because recently the Coimbatore collector, one of Mr. Nagarajan, now he has been promoted and he has been deputed as a settlement officer for government of Tamil Nadu now. When he was a collector of Coimbatore, the Kallar corridor area, as you know that now Kallar corridor, we are literally 50 meters of the forest government land.
Very much.
It's not only in the private lands. So what he did, about 34 or 54 acres of land, though it is a private land, he declares a community reserve, which means it is available for elephants to move across, move to the habitat when by crossing the huge vehicle which are now called Metropolitan Ooty highways. Then last but not least, my last discussion, one of my another student who did recently has completed his PhD on elephant mortality across the state of Tamil Nadu. He has collected about 1,544 elephant post-mortem posts we have analyzed. We found, we all knew that the Project Elephant was launched. Major aim was to protect the male by the time, because it was very highly poaching on males, selective killing of the males, right? So the Project Elephant, one of the main aims is to protect. That is what the anti-poaching strategy, everything has been established to safeguard the males, adult males, to ensure the balanced sex ratio for the future offsprings. But now almost poaching is almost narrowed down here and there, sporadically where it's happening. But other side, if you see that electrocution, now electrocution is playing a vital role compared to the sexual bias. We found that sex bias. We found that mostly almost 70 to 80% of male elephants has been more electrocuted. The death was electrocution. That is how the age gap, if we see that the prime age, in the viable breeding age, after 25 to 35 years old, more prone for electrocution. If this is because here and there we are getting the news, but when you see the cumulative figure, almost 20 to 30% of male population getting killed by electrocution, prime, especially this age group. So this is a prime age group. We need to protect especially this age group to maintain the balanced sex ratio. But we need to have thinking for, we are planning for the future policy level implementations are very important. How to control this, because Project Elephant, which has come for reduce the poaching, which is reduced now. But this is what we are doing, how we are going for it.
This is slightly a complex scenario. When we say no conflict increasing, most of the conflict are by male, and the animal that is getting involved in conflict are getting electrocuted or killed. It is no, of course I do agree, but since it's a polygynous species, a male mates with several female. I do not see that it is going to really reduce the reproductive sustainability of the population or reproductive viability of the population. It is not something to that level. But in fact, I have been asking the Project Elephant, when they do the population estimation, synchronized elephant census, we need to move ahead. We should not just restrict ourselves only to the population size alone. We also should take a look at population structure, the mortality and the natality, all those. We do have a mortality data which has to be incorporated, and see what percentage of population is declining or getting killed or having mortality. All those needed to be really looked at. I hope in now the days coming, the situation will change. We will take those kind of information and come out with a better understanding as to what is the natality and what is the mortality and where the population is heading towards. We will have a better understanding as the days to go, as the days to come. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ramakrishnan. You have any more questions?
Yeah.
Any topic to be? Thank you so much. Am I audible, Dr. Ramakrishnan? Dr.
Yeah, finish. Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you. Yeah, we are audible.
Yes,
Hello?
perfect.
Yeah,
Thank
please.
you so much. I would
Thank you.
the audience to share the questions. Meanwhile, I'll start with a question from Vadiraj. It is for Dr. Baskaran. He asks, spacing, does it imply that they're communicating, the herds communicating over distances for maintaining hierarchy?
Can you repeat the question? I am unable to.
Yes, so I'll repeat the question. So Vadiraj is asking, when you explain the concept of spacing, does it imply that the herd is communicating over the distances to maintain the hierarchy? So the clans and herds, are they communicating through the long distances?
They do. I mean, you are asking, are they communicating? Are they communicating? Using what mode? I
Yes.
mean, elephants are known to use infrasonic sound system for communication, and therefore they can avoid. But accidentally, when they do come across, or when subdominant get into optimal habitat, the dominant one get to know there is, it started showing a defense against subdominant. And therefore, very next day, you see the subdominant moving away from the optimal habitat. And the dominant continue to use the same place, which means that there is a hierarchy. Although they can use the infrasonic sound system to avoid accidentally coming across happening. And I mean, there is a communication. It is not something that they cannot avoid. It is there very much.
Yes. So just to take the leading question, when you talk about the dominance, so what are the factors through which the dominance is determined?
Okay. It is an interesting question. Like, how do you differentiate who is dominant over whom? Like in general, animals that keep up, its stature very high, like especially high elevated head, and then air pinna is spread, and then walking towards forward direction without any kind of scrounging or anything, you consider as a dominant. On the other hand, elephant that is crouching itself, not raising head, putting the head downward, like what you see in dogs. So the subdominant will show it's this one in scissors and with raised head, where the submissive one will keep lowering its head and kneeling down, almost literally lying down on the head floor. It is not exactly like that, but here you see the head difference. The subdominant crouches itself and then doesn't show its face and try to return as escape from that scenario, and it completely curls the pinna. It doesn't spreads the pinna. All that lowering the head is all an indication that it is a subdominant. The one which is on the other hand has the raised head and spread air and walking towards forward direction is the dominant.
So this is more to do with the individual. So when it comes at a herd level, then how it has been differentiated? Which herd is dominant and which herd is subdominant? Because this has almost a correlation to what you said about the use of habitat and which habitat they prefer, which habitat they prefer, looking at their dominance.
the dominant or subdominant as what I have explained, but habitat which is optimal, which is suboptimal, that is depends on the season. A given habitat cannot be optimal in all the season. Say, for example, a dry thorn forest, which used to have a more young leaf, grass or sprouting grass or a very greenery grass with high, which is known for high nutrient, is during the second wet monsoon or southeast northeast monsoon time, the tropical dry thorn forest, which is in a lower elevation, which receives a high rainfall, is to be an optimal habitat during that time. But when it changes into dry season, tropical dry thorn forest is not an optimal habitat. Probably the dry, moist deciduous habitat or dry deciduous tall grass habitat is the most optimal. So it is something that according to season, according to the resources, it changes. So that is a characteristic feature of the tropical habitat, and that is one has to experience, in person. That is the reason.
Right. Also, what we think as a group, we have come up with few questions. I'll quickly ask them because it's already more than 1.5 hours, so I don't want to keep audience waiting, as well as I don't want you also to wait. And thank you for holding back and taking the questions further. So my next question is there any study has been conducted in India, or for that matter, South Africa, where the population has been estimated at a clan level, at a herd level? Because what you have shared is very, very insightful. And you have nicely simplified it, the usage of the habitat by different herds and the social hierarchy that they are maintaining while using the landscape and the habitat. So has there any study where the population has been estimated at a herd level, or any data has been, any estimation exercises has been happened on that level?
Of course, there has been few studies in South Africa, which has looked at all this at individual level, from the past population level to in the recent years there has been individual level, which is apart from the behavioral concept. They also looked at in the molecular genetic concept, and it is a very interesting study which has been taken up by the researcher, including one Douglas Hamilton, and there is another Wittemeyer, who's now person who was studied in detail, and it is a very detailed study which has used all kind of this one tool, including radio telemetry and satellite imagery, molecular tool, which is exactly documented as to what I have outlined.
Right. So just a couple of questions around radio telemetry. So, Dr. Ramakrishnan has already touch-based it. He talked about 30 years back, the radio telemetry study has been done, and the technology was not as evolved as what it is today. And still you managed to get so many insights about, the habitat used by the different clans. So if you have to suggest, considering today's situation where the conflict is rising and the habitat is already fragmented. So if there are various researchers using the telemetry in today's condition, which are the areas that you would suggest that they should look into using the radio telemetry for the studying it more in detail, which can have a good implication on the management plan? Sorry if I'm confusing, I would like to repeat my question. So considering your experience and expertise using radio telemetry for the conservation planning, in today's scenario, what do you suggest in which areas researchers should focus using the radio telemetry? What should they do more?
Which area you are exactly asking to be really studied using radio telemetry?
So when I say area, for example, you tried looking at the clan-wise habitat usage. So is it relevant to continue doing that, or should they be doing something else, considering the fragmented forest, considering high level of conflict?
Okay, I
I
mean,
would suggest the same area also. No, I would
yeah,
suggest the same
exactly.
area
I mean,
when
only,
Bhaskar did, no? That same area also we can start up because already we have the data which we can use as a benchmark. So now we do the same work in the same area. Definitely we could compare what happened after 3 decades, because the area might be changed, the animal behavior might change, home range might be changed, fertility might be changed. When you do the same area only, already we have the data. So as to work in the same area, maybe the information we could gather to know about the present scenario. But other point of view, people are thinking that we can reduce the conflict by radio coloring elephants. Really, already so many attempts have been made. The elephants were brought from Assam to Bandipur. Again they went back. So that is, Dr. Baskaran has explained very much clear about that. No, the behavior of the elephants, the traditional movements, the fidelity. Exactly, the elephant that showed particular clan and individuals. Really, it is there. So better will work. Present scenario will work in the same area. We'll get good information scientifically. We'll compare what was happened the last 3 decades, what is happening now. Then we can use that information. Probably we could be able to implicate implicate into other areas. Like we'll try for some of the areas, not exactly the highly problematic elephants. That's my just opinion. Oscar, you can supplement.
I also agree with Ramakrishnan's view. No, it should be taken up in the same place so that you can use the past information to infer what is happening with all the land use, land cover changes taking place, so that it tells you to understand the changes in the elephant ecology or changes in the elephant behavior, so that one can easily visualize.
Right.
Accordingly, you can plan it. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much. Anything else other than benchmarking? Is there anything else that researchers should focus while using a telemetry?
Could you repeat the question?
So one is the benchmarking. We go to the same landscape, same area, and we do the study now using the telemetry, looking at the home ranges, looking at the habitat usage. Apart from that, anything else that can be focused by the researcher now?
Apart from this one, I do have now, as Dr. Ramakrishnan pointed out, that lanthanum invasion has really, in a very high intensity. That also must have influenced a lot on the elephant feeding, because now 60 to 70% of the space available to the indigenous species like grass and browse, which is used by elephants, are taken away by the invasive species. So when 60 to 70% of the grass availability has reduced, elephant most likely would have shifted their diet towards something else, or elephant must be compensating the loss of grass with some other browse species. So how does that influence on the forest tree dynamics or browse species dynamics? This is another interesting question, can also be addressed, because that past data or benchmark is available, which can be compared, and therefore that can also be addressed. And what is all the degradation level? How far the degradation which was there in the past now, where up to what level it has been increased, can also be compared, and therefore that is another area which can also be focused apart from the ranging.
Right. So already Dr. Ramakrishnan talked about it, but I still want to ask this question to both of you. So, excuse me. So can radio telemetry definitely is used for researching the ecology, the animal behavior, but at the same time, while doing that, especially on the conflict, the animal identified as a conflict animal, can it be used as an early warning system? And I'm sure it has been already tried by many forest departments at the state level. But what are the outcomes? How effective it is to use it as an early warning system? So definitely it is helping us to understand the movement pattern, the habitat usage, but at the same time, how effective it is to use it as an early warning system, not for mitigating conflict, but just as an early warning system, how effective it is.
You are exactly asking, is
Absolutely.
translocating the problem elephant is an ideal solution?
No, sir. Is it ideal solution to use it as an early warning system for animals which are identified as a conflict animal?
Yes.
Yeah, that is good. Because the radio collaring information we can use as a early warning system only, because after radio collaring the animal, we cannot think that the problem is solved. Only thing we could able to early detection where the elephant moves, where the problem fellow moves. If it moves close to the human habitation, it will be informed to the people, local people. Yes, there are the guy with the problematic fellow is coming near to the human settlement. Most probably we could definitely we could avoid to human casualties. Very important. Because human lives, no, we cannot imagine the human lives, whoever maybe. The lives are very important. So the human lives can be really saved by radio calling that kind of problematic individuals. And we can very good, it can use as a yearly warning system. Because though we can use very important things. Nowadays, recently, so much advanced, very sophisticated radio telemetry inventions are happened. Because what Bhaskar did, he went with the antenna and we were taking the triangle and the direction. So many calculations have been made. But nowadays, sitting in the computer, we could be able to get the data where that fellow moves, where the problem A moves and B moves. So when the B moves close to the human habitat, it will be very much informed to the forest, but because we have also adequate staff now. All the division, we have the anti-depredation team and elephant driving operation team. So much of teams have been formed. The only thing, they getting the information. When we are getting the information, after casualty getting the information, no way useful. Before getting the information, definitely we could stop at least the human casualties and injuries rather than operating.
Right. So do we say then this will be a future because the conflict is increasing every day? You hear some or other news related to elephants. Either there is a death of animal or a death of a human. So will it become a way forward where we see more and more conflict animals are being radio collared, and there will be more and more rapid response teams are being formed? Will this be a
I would say, I mean, it can be used as a early warning system because these days you have the real-time tracking data, GPS telemetry, which is giving you a real-time tracking data. But on the other hand, you need to have some kind of a ground team, which is very well equipped or very well armed, and then with all kind of a protection on the ground you need to have, so that they take some kind of a initiative to drive the elephant back. In fact, in northern West Bengal, we tried using satellite telemetry, which was in 2004 or 2005. And therefore, it was working. It was working well. We were able to give the information. But a satellite-based tracking system or satellite telemetry, it is not a GPS telemetry, it is a satellite telemetry. Satellite telemetry, by the time when it obtains its location and sends back from there, it takes time. And there is some 3 to 4 hours time. But GPS telemetry is much more advanced. You can get to know at every second where the elephant is moving. And therefore, I'm sure that it can be used, provided we have a ground team which is equipped with this one, especially the chronic crop riders, which causes 30 to 40% of the damage, can be easily tackled using such a tool.
So using telemetry and a rapid response ground team should be part of the management plan by the forest department?
Very much. We'll have to move, advance ourselves with technological use, and therefore we can able to control or keep the conflict under the control.
Right. Also, another very practical question I would like to ask to both of you. So considering your experience of radio collaring, what is the minimum time period that radio collars stay on an animal? Because the male, I read that they are notorious to remove the collars. And what is the maximum time period the collars stayed on an animal? What is the minimum time period and what is the maximum time period the collars stayed on an animal?
See, when we are talking about elephant,
depending upon,
when we are talking about elephant and carrying collars, I know the weight of the collar is just not comparable to the body weight of the elephant. Of course, no, it may have at the initial time some kind of no unusual. I mean, some kind of this one feeling it can have, but as the time go, it must have been used to, and the collars that we have put up on elephants in southern India or northeastern India never been removed, and they were all falling down on their own after about 5 or 7 or 8 years. So by the time as as a duration increases, the collar also becoming too loose, and the animal also getting used to. I don't think it can have any kind of a problem to the animal, because it is such a largest animal, and the weight of the collar is not going to make much of a difference. Of course, for the beginning, 1 or 2 days in the beginning, but not as after a month or two.
Right.
To supplement Dr. Baskaran things, Bhaskar, when you did the radio color for all the 5 elephants, even when I was working, I could be able to see the radio color Harini and Priyanka, both animals. So nowadays, wherever they put the collar, most of the places I found that within 2 months, 3 months, the collar was hanging somewhere in the branches of the tree. So I think we need to develop a capacity building for the people also for the radio collaring, because they did 89, 93. Still, we found the collar, it was intact with the animal neck till 2007 when I was working. But nowadays, when we put the collar, within 2 months, 3 months, it's falling somewhere, collecting the collars back. Somewhere we need, I think, personally believe that we need to develop the capacity building for our people to go for radio collaring. See that it is it lasts for at least quite long days at the neck of the animal. So that we need to, as Baskaran suggested, the body weight, the animal health, so many things to be incorporated on that. So that is what I found, that we need to have little more capacity building ourselves. See that the collar is lasts for quite little longer days in the animal neck. That is also very important.
Sure. So what could be those factors that one should, you already highlighted Dr. Baskaran, but what would be those 3 main important things that one should keep it in mind while carrying out the radio collar deployment operation?
Could you repeat the question?
So what could be 4 major aspects one has to keep it in mind while carrying out the radio collar deployment operation?
First of all, not evening. After 3 o'clock, it is not more advisable, because Baskaran has pointed out, now after putting the injection, we cannot expect the animal will fall the same place. It will run little distance.
Oh, timing. He is asking about the timing.
Timing, and also what are the main important precautions or things to be want to have in mind for going for radio collar.
Yeah. As Dr. Ramakrishnan pointed out, after 2 p.m. is not ideal. And in fact, I would say after 1 o'clock, it is not ideal. And there are other this one also conditions, like during the summertime, afternoon darting the animal is again not appropriate, because already the tranquilizer drug itself will raise the body temperature over and above. When environmental temperature is high, again this adding to it will not be appropriate body the condition for the animal, and therefore we should stick to the earliest possible. And from the safety point of view, as animals start running 2 to 3 kilometers, you, apart from taking into account the time factor, you should also take into account the terrain. What kind of a terrain? You should select the terrain which is more or less level ground, and there should not be any water body nearby. If animal, by the time when it crosses the water body, what if it get completely sedated and fall inside the water, and the trunk goes inside the water? That is another precaution we will have to think of. You should not select an animal in the slanting terrain or close to permanent water body, or even in level land and where no water source is available. We will have to be always behind the animal, because when the animal falls, instead of being on the lateral side, recumbency, if it goes on its sternal, it goes on its chest, goes and sits, animal will die within, within 5-10 minutes, because its body weight when put onto the chest, this one, heart, this one operation will fail within no time. And therefore, the team which is tracking the doctored animal has to be always behind this one. And therefore, taking all this into account, we'll have to complete all this before 3 o'clock, or before 2 o'clock. After 2 o'clock, we should not take a chance for tranquilizing animal. And level land, you should always, and no slanting slopes or topography you should dot, and the nearby water bodies dotting the animal also is again a risky one.
Sure. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Just last two questions before we close it. One is, you talked about the importance of preserving the traditional corridors, So I just wanted to ask you, so 102 corridors which have been, published by WTI and various individuals and elephant experts. So any guesstimate that out of those 102 corridors, how many are the traditional corridors which are frequently used by elephants? Anything that you would like to comment on that?
See, generally what is being listed in the book are all traditional corridors. It is also, there are a lot of confusion among the people about the corridor. As far as the corridor is concerned, we need to really take into account the one which is being used by the female herds or clans, because clans is always after the resources, and they follow the same pattern, and they've been using the same landscape for several decades. Whereas in case of corridors which is being used by males, cannot be taken as a grant that it is a traditional corridor. Because the males are wander all over these days.
Yes.
For avoiding or getting into crop riding or avoiding human being, they simply walk across the landscape and go, or human landscape and go. And those and all cannot be treated. Traditional corridors are the one easiest to be differentiated, the one which is used by female herds, especially in the non-riding elephants are treated as a traditional corridors. And if there are disturbance by people, sometimes even female herds also try to stray, escape from the people. They may just walk across, and that cannot be treated as a corridor. Corridor is the one which has been traditionally used by female herds and on their own without any kind of a disturbance. And thereby only that has been always stressed upon to the people when they are studying about the corridor. And that is there very much. All the corridor which has been identified and included into the rite of passage book by WTI are all the traditional corridors.
Sure. Thank you so much, sir. There's one quick question for Dr. Ramakrishnan. Shashi Kumar SR asked this. In Coimbatore Forest Division, recent elephant deaths in Walayar railway crossing, is there any remedy the Forest Department have for that?
Yeah. Actually, last week I made a presentation to additional PCF, who has been appointed recently to analyze and monitor the elephant mortality for Tamil Nadu. So by the time also the additional PCF asked the question, this is what. So that entire structure worked, even I worked with the WTI, and after that also I followed the worked in the railway track incidences. That there, the problem is not there throughout the year. So many things analysis have been done. The problem is only during rainy season. That is after the onset of the southwest monsoon, it lasts till the end of the northeast monsoon. So the problem is only 6 months. And the problem is not the entire track. The track is from Walayar to from Kanjikode, that is a border of the Kerala, Kanjikode to Walayar, around 7 kilometers. The problem is not the entire track. The problem is also confined to be around 1 to 1.5 kilometers. So in the 1 to 1.5 kilometers, already we identified where are the exact locations, where do the elephant can cross B line and where do they cross the A line. So this all already analysis have been done. So only thing, what we need to do that. So since the spatial temporal pattern of the mortality are available, we need to have a meeting during the month of May every year, or even little prior to month also, how we are going to looking forward this year as zero mortality. But what unfortunately happening, all the meetings are being kept after the mortality was happened. When the mortality, when the elephant get killed by a train, the next month, another couple of months, there will be a continuous meeting. I don't think it is going to work, because these are the available data is there, the available informations are there. Then what we need to have, we need to have a meeting in the month of May, probably the Southern Railway with the Tamil Nadu Forest Department and the people like us and so many people, Wildlife Trust, and we all work. It's like that. The meeting supposed to have before the incident takes place, not after the incidents take place. But it is happening like this. I explained to our additional PCF, sir, at least this year, we should plan for having a meeting in the month of May. Unfortunately, till today, it was not happened. But now monsoon also started. So June, now they started. Till December, there is a chance we need to be more careful. But as of today, we do not have any prior plan or any physical operations or any planning on that. Any incidents takes place, probably we may have subsequently consecutive meeting, which is not going to be useful for it. That is what I would like to say.
Right. Okay, right. So there are a couple of comments by the audience. So Chaitanya Sridhar, he writes that looking at the human-elephant conflict, growing population, is population dwindling, will have more of captive elephants than the natural wild ones. That will not happen, Mr. Chaitanya. Tahir Ahmed says that our elephants always choose optimal habitats, or they stay same habitat in their hard times also. So Dr. Baskaran has nicely explained about the correlation between using the habitat and the dominance of the habitat. So that takes care of the question by Mr. Tahir. Then there is the last question by Vadiraj again. Instead of tranquilizing drug, do we have immobilizing drugs? I suppose it's safer. If not, are there any initiative to develop? I think currently the immobilization
and use immobilan is one of the drug which
yes.
Immobilan is one of the drug which could fall the elephants immediately after the drug is inserted. But there are other safe drugs are there, like immobilizing, like xylazine, ketamine, and all we can use. But normally the xylazine, ketamine we use for our captive elephants, because even one of the incidences which I evidenced, there was one. There is one elephant called Shankar, our captive elephant, which is on mast. When I was working in Mudumalai PhD, so early morning we got the message: the elephant is going to cut off the last chain. When it is cut off the last chain, animal will go inside the forest. It is aggressive must when aggressive animal when must attains only. So before that we rushed. We put xylazine, ketamine dose only, immobilization dose. It was so many factors, because it was early morning, it was so foggy, severe cold season, the month of November and December. We put continually 2 doses. The animal was still aggressive. It never allowed us to go very close to the animal. It was though it has been inserted by the safer drug like xylazine ketamine combination. But after we were a little bit not comfortable that we were a little bit worried about that whether we go for third injection. So better we stop. Then we thought we'll do something to get animal get frightened. So that we brought a couple of almost 4 kumkis, and we made a frightened to the animal so that its body temperature increases, heartbeat increases. Then suddenly animal got immobilized. So even for captive elephant itself, it is not happening. So the wild ones, we cannot assure that our immobilization drug, safer drug, animal will not die. But even though we cannot believe that 100% of our animals are immobilized. That is because lots of the climatic factors are there. These are the things. Animal might close its ears and so many things, but when you approach close to the animal, the wild behavior will act. It will come and hit on us. So that is what it is not a little much not safer drug immobilization than the tranquilizer. The tranquilizer, why we are following for wild animals for better our safe, that is very important. Bhaskar, you can if you want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, no problem with the quantity of the drug. In fact, a veterinarian expert veterinarian says you go slightly on the higher side of the dosage, animal comes into the sedation faster so that it is safer. When animal not coming into the sedation faster, there are more risk involved. When the animal runs without coming into sedation, there's more chances of animal getting into uneven place or into water body or going and falling in a long distance, which we will not be able to track and locate. Therefore, dosage on the higher side is also always been prescribed by this one veterinary expert. And as depends on your operation, you can plan it. And there are, as he said, there are different kinds of drugs are available. You have drug which will only arrest the muscular movement. Animal will be still with consciousness, but it will not be able to move. And there are drugs which is apart from muscular arrest, which will make the animal also to be completely unconscious. And therefore, you can use accordingly, but the quantity need not be a big problem. But as you continuously observe their body condition, physiological condition, like heartbeat and then pulse level, once you realize that their condition is on the risky side, then you rescue the animal. There are revive on animal, drug to revive the animal, so that as long as you keep the animal under your observation, there's no big problem. That is it.
Right. Thank you so much. Can I ask a last question? There's just one question has come up. So this question is from Aditya Goswami. So he asked, are collared individuals treated differently by their herd members? That's the first question. Second question, does that differ gender-wise?
Okay, Ramakrishnan, were you able to understand what is the question? Because I am.
I'll repeat the question. No. After the collaring the animals, how the other animals will treat the animal, the collared animal? Because
okay. What is the behavior or the response of the other animal? Other animals do respond. They do respond. And now you can see immediately when the collared animal goes back and joins the maternal herd, other animals immediately they come and touch because there is so much of a unnatural flavor on the body.
Yeah.
All kind of a drug, and then the radio collar itself is there, drug smell is there. They will all come and touch, and then they may create all kind of a communication, all kind of a sound you can hear, which means they feel that is something happened to the collared animal. They do have various kinds of a communication, which we don't completely. And there is we hear trumpeting, we hear roaring, we hear rumbling, all kind of a communication we hear. They will come and touch and feel, and then some of them will try to pull the collar, all kind of this one. One of the collared elephant was keeping her head for a half a day, thinking that it will fall down. And after that, she was all right. I mean, she started realizing that it is not going to fall, and she completely ignored. Another radio collared bull managed to get rid of the collar, hooking it against a tree, broken tree branch, and it was a satellite collar, managed to tear into pieces and then got rid of it. So all kind of responses are there by the same individual as well as by other individual. One of them, in fact, the one what I have studied, when it got used to, when it doesn't want the trunk to be hanged, it will put inside the collar so that the trunk getting the support without much effort. So like that kind of behavior and all is there always, and they do have a response to the collared elephant or the kind of this one what there on the animal, drug or human smell, all that they respond.
Thank you so much. Thank you for such an insightful presentation, Dr. Baskaran. And Dr. Ramakrishnan touch basing the several aspects about the conservation planning, conflict, and the drugs around used. And it's absolutely fascinating. And there are a lot of things which are very complex. You simplified and you put it across. And thank you so much for being so patient, because it's almost 2 hours. We are close to the dinner time, and you still took all the questions without any hesitation. So thank you so much for both of you. And I hand it over to Sai to close today's event. Thank you, both of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. At the offset, I also extend my sincere thanks to the Friends of the Elephants for giving me this opportunity, as well as for Dr. Ramakrishnan to share his opinion or to have his own views about my study. And on behalf of him, as well as myself, I extend my sincere thanks to Friends of the Elephant. Thank you very much for all your cooperation. Sai Sanjeev and yourself. Thank you, love.
Thank you so much. Sai, please.
Thank you, thank you, Mr. Ramakrishnan sir. Thank you, Baskaran sir. Thank you, Ramakrishnan sir, for bringing intricate topics of conservation, thoughts of climate change and the invasive species to the ecology and the physiology. It was really interesting for all of us. Thank you, Baskaran sir. Thank you, Ramakrishnan. We'll meet next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, audience.
Yeah. Thank you to everyone. Thank you for giving opportunity. Yes, also. Thank you very much, sir.